At the Christmas Eve dinner, my husband Marcus raised his wine glass and announced to our guests, "Here's to my wife Celeste and her adorable little 50 monthly allowance." The room erupted in laughter as I felt my face burn with humiliation. That's when I smiled sweetly and decided he was about to receive the most unforgettable Christmas gift of his life. I'm Celeste, and at 42 years old, I thought I knew everything about the man I'd been married to for 15 years. I was spectacularly wrong. Nothing could have prepared me for what happened at our annual Christmas Eve dinner party last December, when a single mocking toast shattered not just my evening, but everything I believed about my marriage. The party was exactly what you'd expect from Marcus: ostentatious, expensive, and designed to impress his business associates and wealthy neighbors. Our sprawling estate in Malibu was decorated like something out of a luxury magazine, with a 12-foot Fraser fir dripping in crystal ornaments and enough twinkling lights to power a small city. Professional caterers moved seamlessly through our marble-floored dining room, serving courses that cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. I stood near the fireplace in my emerald green silk dressa, 3.0 designer piece that Marcus had insisted I buy for the occasion, feeling oddly disconnected from the glittering crowd around me. These were Marcus's people, tech entrepreneurs, real estate moguls, and their perfectly sculpted wives who spent their days at exclusive spas and private Pilates sessions. I'd never quite fit into this world, despite 15 years of trying. Marcus commanded the room effortlessly, as he always did. At 47, he was still devastatingly handsome with his silver-streaked hair and the kind of confidence that came from building a tech empire worth hundreds of millions. He moved between groups of guests with practiced charm, his Armani tuxedo impeccable, discussing mergers and acquisitions with the casual air of someone for whom 8-figure deals were routine conversation. I'd been nursing the same glass of champagne for an hour, watching my husband perform his role as the gracious host, when he clinked his knife against his crystal wine glass. The familiar sound made my stomach clench. Marcus loved making toasts, especially ones that put him at the center of attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying that smooth authority that had charmed investors and intimidated competitors for decades. "I want to thank you all for joining us on this beautiful Christmas Eve." The room quieted, faces turning toward him with the respectful attention that wealth and power commanded. I smiled automatically, playing my part as the supportive wife, completely unprepared for what came next. "As many of you know, I believe in taking care of the people I love," Marcus continued, his eyes finding mine across the room with what I initially mistook for affection. "Which is why I make sure my beautiful wife Celeste gets her monthly allowance, a generous 5.0 to spend on whatever her heart desires." The laughter that followed Marcus's toast felt like knives piercing my chest. I watched as our guest people I'd entertained in this very house for years chuckled at what they perceived as my husband's generous indulgence of his little wife. Pemberton, the real estate heiress from next door, actually patted my arm condescendingly and whispered, "How sweet that Marcus takes such good care of you, dear." What none of them knew, what Marcus had carefully hidden from his social circle, was that I wasn't some pampered housewife living off her husband's generosity. That 5.0 allowance he'd just mocked so publicly? It was my own moan yearnings from the online consulting business I'd built from scratch while he climbed the corporate ladder. 15 years ago, when we first married, I'd been a successful marketing director at a Fortune 500 company, earning 6 figures and building campaigns that won industry awards. But Marcus had different plans for his wife. He wanted someone who could play the role of the perfect executive spouse, beautiful, charming, available for every business dinner and charity gala that would advance his career. "You don't need to work anymore, sweetheart," he'd said after his first major promotion. "I make enough for both of us. Why don't you focus on making our home perfect? Think of all the networking events we could attend together." Like a fool, I'd believed it was romantic. I'd believed he wanted me by his side because he loved me, not because I was a useful accessory. I'd quit my job, sold my downtown condo, and moved into his world completely. But I wasn't built to be idle. Within 2 years of our marriage, I'd started freelance consulting from home, helping small businesses develop their marketing strategies. What began as a way to stay intellectually engaged had grown into a thriving business with over 50 regular clients. I worked from my home office while Marcus was at his company, handling everything from brand development to social media strategy. The irony was bitter. While Marcus dismissed my work as a little hobby, my business had been quietly generating substantial income for years. That 5-0 monthly allowance wasn't his generous gift to me. It was what I paid myself from my own business accounts. Marcus had insisted on managing all our finances, claiming his MBA made him better suited for it, so he handled transferring money from my business account to our joint household account. But he'd never bothered to actually understand what I did or how much I earned. In his mind, I was the dependent wife, grateful for his financial support. He had no idea that my little hobby had generated over 800 in revenue the previous year alone. As the party continued around me, guests making polite conversation about holiday plans and investment portfolios, I felt something cold and calculating settle in my chest. For 15 years, I'd played the role Marcus wanted me to play. I'd smiled at his condescending comments about my work, nodded when he made financial decisions without consulting me, and allowed him to present himself as my generous provider. But tonight, something had shifted. Standing in our opulent dining room, watching him bask in the admiration of people who saw me as nothing more than a well-dressed accessory, I realized I was done being underestimated. The real blow came 2 hours later, after our guests had moved to the terrace for cigars and brandy. I was in the kitchen, helping our housekeeper Carmen organize the catering cleanup, when I overheard Marcus talking to his business partner, Jonathan Hartwell, through the open French doors. "You're lucky Celeste is so low maintenance," Jonathan was saying, his voice carrying that particular tone men use when they think no women are listening. $5,000 a month? Hell, my wife spends that on her trainer alone. Marcus's laugh made my blood run cold. "Jonathan, you have no idea how easy I have it. That 5,000 isn't even real money, it's just her moving her own earnings around. She thinks she's running some big business operation, but it's really just an expensive hobby that keeps her busy while I handle the real work." I gripped the marble counter, my knuckles white with rage. Carmen glanced at me with concern, but I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "Wait," Jonathan continued. "You mean she actually earns that money herself?" "Oh, she makes decent money with her little consulting thing," Marcus said dismissively, and I could practically hear him waving his hand. "But it's not like it's a real business. She works with mom-and-pop shops, small nonprofits, that kind of thing. Cute projects that make her feel important. I just let her think she's contributing by putting her earnings into our household budget. So why present it as an allowance?" Marcus's voice dropped, but I could still hear every devastating word. "Because it keeps her in her place, you know. She gets to feel independent and productive, but everyone else sees her as the wife I generously support. It's perfect, she does all the work. I get all the credit for being a devoted husband." The conversation continued, but I'd heard enough. I walked calmly to my home office, my hands surprisingly steady as I opened my laptop and began accessing accounts Marcus didn't even know existed. My business wasn't just successful, it was about to expand in ways he couldn't imagine. Over the years, while Marcus had been dismissing my work as a hobby, I'd been quietly building something he'd never bothered to investigate. My client base included not just small businesses, but several mid-sized companies who'd grown exponentially under my guidance. 3 of them had been courting me for months, offering partnership deals that would multiply my income dramatically. But more importantly, I'd been documenting everything. Every condescending comment, every financial decision he'd made without consulting me, every time he'd presented my earnings as his generous allowance. I'd kept meticulous records, not because I'd planned for this moment, but because my business background had taught me to always have backup documentation. As I scrolled through emails from potential partners, investment opportunities I'd been considering, and financial records that painted a very different picture of our marriage than what Marcus presented to the world, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 15 years, complete clarity about who I really was and what I was capable of. Marcus thought he'd married a beautiful accessory who played at being a businesswoman. He was about to discover he'd actually married a strategic genius who'd been quietly building an empire while he took credit for her success. The gift I was planning for him wouldn't come wrapped in ribbon and paper. It would come in the form of the truth delivered in a way he'd never forget. The morning after Christmas, while Marcus slept off his hangover from the previous night's festivities, I sat in my office with 3 cups of coffee and a determination I hadn't felt since my corporate days. If Marcus wanted to play games with my reputation and my money, it was time he learned exactly who he was dealing with. I started with our joint finances, accounts that Marcus managed but which I had legal access to as his wife. What I discovered made my blood boil even more than his casual dismissal of my business. For 15 years, he'd been categorizing my business earnings as miscellaneous household income on our tax returns, essentially erasing my professional identity from our financial records. But that was just the beginning. Marcus had been systematically underreporting my income to our accountant, not for tax evasion purposes, but to maintain the narrative that I was financially dependent on him. Every time someone asked about our family finances, he could truthfully say that his income was the primary source of our wealth, because he'd structured the reporting to make my contributions appear minimal. Even more infuriating was what I found in his personal files. Marcus kept detailed records of every major purchase, every investment, every financial decision, and beside each entry, he'd noted whether the funding came from M income or household misc. My 800 in business revenue from the previous year had been labeled as household misc. I picked up my phone and called Sandra Morrison, my former colleague from my corporate days who now worked as a forensic accountant. If anyone could help me understand the full scope of what Marcus had been doing, it was Sandra. "Celeste, what a surprise!" Sandra's warm voice came through the phone. "How are the holidays treating you?" "Sandra, I need your professional help, and I need absolute discretion," I said without preamble. "I think my husband has been financially manipulating our marriage for years, and I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with." There was a pause. Are we talking about potential fraud, or are we talking about divorce preparation? "I honestly don't know yet. Maybe both." Sandra agreed to meet me that afternoon at her downtown office. I spent the morning gathering every document I could find: tax returns, bank statements, business records, investment portfolios, and most importantly, the prenuptial agreement I'd signed 15 years ago without reading carefully because I'd been so in love. Reading that prenup now, with the clarity of betrayal, was like looking at a legal document designed specifically to keep me powerless. In the event of divorce, I would receive a modest settlement enough to live comfortably, but nowhere near what I'd actually contributed to our wealth. Marcus had structured it so that any business I operated during our marriage would be considered a joint marital asset, meaning he'd be entitled to half of everything I'd built. But here's what Marcus hadn't counted on. I'd been building more than just a consulting business. Over the past 5 years, I'd been quietly investing my earnings in ways that weren't connected to our joint accounts. I'd purchased real estate under my maiden name, funded startup companies through an investment LLC I'd established before our marriage, and most importantly, I'd been offered a partnership in a marketing firm that would make me independently wealthy. The partnership offer had been sitting in my email for 6 months. Hartwell, Associates, a prestigious firm where Jonathan's wife Jennifer worked as CEO, wanted to bring me on as a senior partner, valuing my client base and expertise at $2.3 million. I could buy into the partnership, merge my existing business with theirs, and become part of a multi-million-dollar operation. I'd been hesitating because Marcus had always made it clear that he expected me to prioritize his career over mine. Any decision that would require significant time away from home, any opportunity that might outshine his success, was met with subtle but persistent discouragement. But as I sat in my office, looking at evidence of how thoroughly he'd diminished and dismissed my professional achievements, I realized I'd been playing by rules that only benefited him. It was time to change the game entirely. As I waited in Sandra's office later that afternoon, surrounded by the familiar smell of leather-bound legal books and expensive cologne from her corporate clients, my mind drifted back to the woman I used to be before I became Marcus's wife. I'd been 27 when we met, fierce and ambitious, with a corner office at Brennan Marketing and a reputation for turning failing campaigns into award-winning successes. I wore power suits and commanded boardrooms full of men twice my age. I'd bought my own condo, drove a BMW I'd paid for with my first bonus, and had never once questioned my worth or my capabilities. Marcus had swept into my life like a romantic hurricane. He was 32, devastatingly handsome, and unlike any man I'd ever dated. Where the men in my professional circles saw me as competition, Marcus seemed awed by my success. He'd show up at my office with flowers, introduce me to his friends as the brilliant marketing genius, and constantly tell me how impressed he was with my career. "You're incredible," he'd whispered after I'd landed the Morrison account, a client worth millions that 3 other agencies had failed to win. "I've never met anyone as smart and driven as you." I'd fallen completely, utterly, stupidly in love. The changes started so gradually I didn't notice them at first. Marcus would suggest that I looked tired after long days at the office, that maybe I was pushing myself too hard. He'd plan romantic getaways during important project deadlines, then act hurt when I said I couldn't leave work. He'd make dinner reservations during client meetings, then sigh disappointedly when I had to cancel. "I just miss you," he'd say. "I want to spend time with the woman I love." When he proposed, it was at a company retreat in front of all his colleagues, a grand gesture that made saying no impossible. The ring was a flawless 3-carat diamond that cost more than I made in 6 months, and everyone applauded as I said yes with tears streaming down my face. The prenup came later, presented by his lawyer 2 weeks before our wedding when everything was already planned and paid for. "It's just a formality," Marcus had said, kissing my temple as I stared at the thick legal document. "My father insists on it for anyone marrying into the family business. You know I'd give you everything I have." I'd signed it because I loved him, because I trusted him, and because the very idea of our marriage failing seemed impossible. The real manipulation began after our honeymoon. Marcus started making comments about how stressed I looked, how the corporate world was draining my natural radiance. He'd point out other executive wives who seemed so much happier, so much more relaxed, now that they could focus on creating beautiful homes and supporting their husbands' careers. "You're so talented," he'd say, "but imagine what you could accomplish if you weren't tied down to someone else's company. You could start your own thing, work with clients you actually care about, set your own schedule." It sounded like freedom. It sounded like he believed in me. What it actually was, I now realized, was a carefully orchestrated campaign to isolate me from my professional network, my financial independence, and my sense of self-worth. Within 6 months of our marriage, I'd resigned from Brennan Marketing, sold my condo, and moved into Marcus's world completely. He'd convinced me it was a romantic gesture, 2 people building a life together, but looking back, I could see it for what it really was, a systematic dismantling of everything that had made me powerful. The most painful part wasn't even Marcus's betrayal, it was recognizing how thoroughly I'd betrayed myself. I'd given up everything that mattered to me because a man I loved had made me believe that his love was worth more than my independence. But sitting in Sandra's office, holding documents that proved just how systematically Marcus had diminished my contributions to our marriage, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 15 years. Righteous anger on my own behalf. The woman who'd conquered boardrooms and built million-dollar campaigns was still inside me. She'd just been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to remind Marcus and the world exactly who Celeste Morrison had been before she became Mrs. Marcus Webb. And she was about to make a spectacular comeback. Sandra spread my financial documents across her conference table like a prosecutor laying out evidence, her expression growing more serious with each page she reviewed. After 2 hours of analysis, she leaned back in her chair and gave me a look I remembered from our corporate days, the one that meant someone was about to get destroyed in the most professional way possible. "Celeste, this isn't just financial manipulation," she said carefully. "This is systematic economic abuse designed to maintain control while maintaining plausible deniability." The term economic abuse hit me like a physical blow. I'd heard it in the context of domestic violence situations, but I'd never applied it to my own marriage. Marcus had never hit me, never threatened me, never even raised his voice. But as Sandra walked me through the patterns she'd identified, I began to understand that control comes in many forms. "Look at this timeline," Sandra continued, pointing to a chart she'd created. "Every time your business income increased significantly, Marcus made a major financial decision without consulting you. New house, new cars, investments that tied up your liquid assets. He's been essentially spending your success to maintain your dependence." She was right. When my consulting business had its first 100 year, Marcus had suddenly decided we needed to renovate the Kitchena 75 Zero project that had to come from our joint account. When I'd landed 3 major corporate clients and doubled my income, he'd surprised me with a romantic getaway to Europe that had actually been a month-long absence during my busiest season, causing me to lose 2 potential clients. And this, Sandra said, holding up our prenuptial agreement, is a masterpiece of legal manipulation. Do you see this clause about business assets acquired during marriage? I squinted at the legal language I'd never fully understood. It says that any business I operate during our marriage is considered jointly owned property. Exactly. But look at this section about his business interests. She flipped to another page. His company, any partnerships he enters, any investments he makes, those are specifically protected as separate property due to their premarital origins. The unfairness was staggering. Marcus could build an empire during our marriage and keep it entirely separate, but anything I created automatically became half his. There's more, Sandra said grimly. I did some research into his business dealings. Marcus has been using your success story, the talented wife who built a consulting business from home, as part of his company's marketing narrative. He's literally been profiting off your achievements while publicly diminishing them. She showed me promotional materials from his company's website, articles in business magazines, even a speech he'd given at a leadership conference. In every single instance, Marcus presented himself as the successful executive whose supportive wife had found fulfillment in small business entrepreneurship. My achievements became props in his story of being an enlightened husband who encouraged his wife's hobbies. But the most devastating discovery came when Sandra showed me Marcus's personal financial records, which she'd obtained through some investigative methods I didn't ask about. He's been planning to divorce you for at least 2 years, she said quietly. Look at these consultation fees. She's been meeting with divorce attorneys, financial planners, even a private investigator. The room started spinning. A private investigator? Apparently checking to make sure you weren't hiding assets or having an affair. Marcus has been building a case to minimize his financial obligations to you while maximizing what he can claim from your business. I stared at the evidence of my husband's betrayal, feeling like I was looking at the remains of a life I'd thought was real. For 15 years, I'd believed I was in a partnership. I'd believed Marcus's condescension was just his personality. His dismissal of my work was just traditional male ego. His control over our finances was just him being practical. The truth was so much worse. I'd been living with a man who'd been systematically planning to destroy me while using my success to enhance his own reputation. Sandra, I said slowly, what would happen if I were to accept that partnership offer from Hartwell Associates before Marcus files for divorce? Her smile was sharp and professional. That depends. When exactly did you receive the offer? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my emails. 6 months ago. But they said the offer would remain open for a year. And when do you think Marcus is planning to file? I thought about the timeline, about the private investigators and attorney consultations. Based on what you've shown me, probably after the first of the year. New year, new life, all that. Sandra's smile grew wider. Then we have a very interesting window of opportunity. Because if you accept that partnership and restructure your business assets before he files, the entire financial landscape of any potential divorce changes dramatically. For the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt something other than anger and betrayal. I felt hope. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I made a major life decision without consulting Marcus. I called Hartwell Associates and scheduled a meeting for that afternoon. But first, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. Sandra had given me the contact information for a forensic IT specialist who worked with high-net-worth divorce cases. If Marcus had been planning this for 2 years, I needed to know everything he knew about my business and my finances. David Chen met me at a discreet cafe in downtown LA, looking more like a college student than someone who specialized in corporate espionage. But within minutes of showing him my concerns, he'd identified at least 6 ways Marcus could have been monitoring my business activities. Your home computer network is completely transparent to him, David explained, pulling up diagnostic information on his laptop. He's been tracking every email, every financial transaction, every business conversation you've had from your home office. The violation felt even worse than the financial manipulation. For how long? Based on the software installed, at least 3 years, possibly longer. David's expression was sympathetic but professional. The good news is that he's been overconfident. He installed basic monitoring software that's easy to detect once you know what to look for. The bad news is that he knows everything about your business operations, your client list, your income streams, everything. What can we do about it? We can clean your systems, set up secure communication channels, and most importantly, we can use his overconfidence against him. If he thinks he knows everything about your business, he's not going to be prepared for what you do next. From the cafe, I drove directly to Hartwell Associates, a gleaming glass tower in Century City that represented everything I'd walked away from 15 years ago. The executive floor felt like coming home, the energy of people building empires, making deals, changing the world through strategic brilliance. Jennifer Hartwell, the CEO and Jonathan's wife, greeted me with the kind of respect I'd forgotten I deserved. "Celeste, I have to tell you, we've been hoping you'd say yes to this partnership for months. Your reputation in the industry is phenomenal." As we discussed the partnership terms, I realized that Marcus's dismissal of my work had been more than just condescension, it had been deliberate blindness. While he'd been treating my business as a hobby, I'd actually built something remarkable. My client retention rate was 94%. My campaigns had generated over $50 million in revenue for my clients over the past 5 years. 3 companies I'd consulted with had gone public, with my marketing strategies directly contributing to their valuations. The partnership would make you an immediate equity holder in a firm valued at $15 million, Jennifer explained. Your existing client base, combined with our infrastructure and capital, could easily triple your annual income within 2 years. But the most interesting part of the offer wasn't the money, it was the timing. If I accepted the partnership immediately, my business would become part of a larger corporate entity. The prenups clause about jointly owned marital assets wouldn't apply to my partnership stake, because I'd be an employee and equity holder in someone else's company, not operating my own business. "There's one condition," I told Jennifer. "I need complete confidentiality about this partnership until I give you explicit permission to make it public." Jennifer's smile told me she understood exactly what kind of situation I was navigating. "Of course. In fact, I think you should know that we've had some interesting inquiries about your availability." "What kind of inquiries?" "Someone claiming to represent your business interests contacted us 3 weeks ago, asking about our partnership discussions with you. They wanted to know the financial terms, the timeline, whether we considered your business a serious acquisition target." My blood ran cold. "Did they identify themselves?" "They said they were calling on behalf of Web Consulting's financial advisors. We assumed your husband was helping you evaluate the opportunity." Marcus hadn't just been monitoring my communication, she'd been actively investigating my business opportunities, probably trying to determine their value for divorce proceedings. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated what those opportunities were actually worth. After signing preliminary partnership agreements that would take effect January 15th, well before Marcus could file for divorce, I drove home with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. Marcus thought he was playing chess while I played checkers. He was about to discover that I'd been playing chess all along, and I was already 3 moves ahead of him. That evening, as Marcus worked late in his home office, probably reviewing his divorce strategy, I sat in my newly secured office space and made a list of everyone who needed to know the truth about our marriage. It was going to be a very interesting new year. The week between Christmas and New Year's Eve passed in a strange suspension of normalcy. Marcus went to his office every day, attended his usual business lunches, and came home each evening acting like the devoted husband he'd always pretended to be. Meanwhile, I quietly orchestrated the most strategic takedown of my life. Working with Sandra and David, I'd created what we called Operation Clarity, a coordinated effort to document, protect, and position everything I needed for the confrontation I knew was coming. The beauty of Marcus's overconfidence was that he had no idea I'd discovered his plans. First, we secured my assets. David had helped me establish completely private communication channels and financial accounts that Marcus couldn't monitor. More importantly, we documented evidence of his surveillance and financial manipulation in ways that would be admissible in court if needed. Second, Sandra had helped me restructure my business relationships. The Hartwell partnership was just the beginning. 2 of my largest clients had agreed to sign long-term contracts directly with me, removing any question about whether they were marital assets. I'd also transferred my investment properties and personal savings into accounts established before our marriage, legally protecting them from any divorce proceedings. But the third phase was the most satisfying. I'd begun reaching out to everyone in Marcus's professional and social circle, not to gossip or complain, but to subtly correct the narrative he'd been spreading about our marriage. Jonathan Hartwell, Marcus's business partner who'd been at our Christmas party, was particularly interested to learn about my partnership with his wife's company. "I had no idea you were the Celeste Morrison that Jennifer's been raving about," he'd said during a carefully casual coffee meeting. "Marcus always makes it sound like you do small-scale local consulting." "Marcus likes to be modest about my work," I'd replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "But I suppose when your wife is about to become a partner in a $15 million firm, modesty becomes complicated." I'd had similar conversations with 6 other couples from our social circle, always framing it as sharing exciting news about my career developments, never directly criticizing Marcus. But the effect was exactly what I'd intended. People were beginning to realize that Marcus's version of our marriage didn't match reality. Mrs. Pemberton, our neighbor who'd condescendingly patted my arm at the Christmas party, had been particularly enlightening to speak with. "Oh, my dear," she'd said when I'd mentioned my partnership offer, "I had no idea you were so accomplished. Marcus always talks about supporting your little hobbies, but this sounds like serious business." "It is serious business," I'd replied pleasantly. "It always has been." The most crucial conversation had been with Marcus's divorce attorney, or rather, with my new attorney, Rebecca Sterling, who'd made some discreet inquiries into Marcus's legal preparations. What she'd discovered confirmed my worst suspicions. Marcus had been planning to file for divorce on January 15th, the same day my partnership with Hartwell was set to begin. "He's been timing this meticulously," Rebecca explained during our meeting at her Beverly Hills office. "File for divorce before your partnership takes effect, claim your business as a marital asset, and position himself as the generous husband whose wife's success was only possible because of his financial support." "But that's not going to work now, is it?" Rebecca's smile was sharp as a blade. "Not even close. By the time he files, you'll be a partner in an established firm, with protected assets and documented evidence of financial abuse. Plus, we have something he doesn't know about." She pulled out a folder I hadn't seen before. "Remember how your husband had you investigated by a private detective? Well, I had him investigated too. Marcus hasn't been quite as faithful as he'd like you to believe." The photographs and documentation she showed me weren't shocking. I'd suspected for years that Marcus's frequent business trips included activities that had nothing to do with business. But having proof, having documentation, having evidence that could be used to challenge any claim he made about being the wronged party in our marriage, that was powerful. "So, what's our strategy?" I asked. "We're going to let him make the first move," Rebecca said. "Let him file for divorce. Let him present his case about your business being a jointly owned marital asset. Let him position himself as the generous provider. And then we're going to systematically destroy every single argument he makes with facts, documentation, and evidence he doesn't know we have." But I had something even better in mind than a legal victory. New Year's Eve was approaching, and Marcus had already planned another part smaller than Christmas, but still an opportunity for him to perform his role as the successful executive with the charming wife. He'd invited the same crowd: business associates, wealthy neighbors, the people whose opinions mattered to his carefully constructed image. It was going to be the perfect venue for my final gift to him. The gift of truth, served publicly and with the kind of strategic precision that would make my old corporate self proud. New Year's Eve arrived with the kind of crisp Los Angeles winter evening that made our terrace perfect for entertaining. Marcus had outdone himself with the party preparation champagne fountains, a jazz quartet, and enough caviar to feed a small army. I wore a stunning black cocktail dress that had cost more than most people's rent, my hair and makeup professionally done, playing the part of the gracious hostess one final time. Our guests arrived fashionably late, the same crowd from Christmas Eve plus a few additions, including Jennifer Hartwell and her husband Jonathan, whom I'd specifically invited. Marcus had raised an eyebrow when I'd mentioned adding them to the guest list, but I'd simply said they were potential business connections. If only he knew. As the evening progressed, I moved through our guests with practiced charm. But this time, I was playing a different game. Instead of standing quietly while Marcus held court, I engaged in meaningful conversations about business, strategy, and my own professional accomplishments. When people mentioned my consulting work, I corrected them gently but firmly. Actually, it's not consulting anymore, I'd say with a smile. I'm about to become a senior partner at Hartwell Associates. We're expanding into comprehensive brand transformation for mid-market companies. The reactions were fascinating to watch. People who dismissed me as Marcus's pampered wife suddenly straightened their postures, asked for my business card, wanted to know more about my expertise. Jonathan Hartwell, who'd laughed at my little allowance just a week ago, now looked at me with the kind of respect reserved for serious players. But the most interesting reaction was Marcus's. From across the room, I could see him watching these conversations with growing confusion and irritation. His version of reality, the one where I was grateful for his financial support, was crumbling in real time, and he couldn't understand why. At 11:30, 30 minutes before midnight, Marcus did exactly what I'd predicted he would do. He climbed onto a chair near our fireplace, champagne glass in hand, and called for everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying that familiar tone of practiced authority, "as we prepare to welcome 2024, I want to take a moment to talk about the importance of family, loyalty, and supporting the people we love." I positioned myself where everyone could see me, my own champagne glass held with steady hands. "As many of you know," Marcus continued, "I've always believed in encouraging my wife's interests and ambitions. Celeste has been exploring various business opportunities this year, and I'm proud to support her entrepreneurial spirit." The condescension in his voice was unmistakable entrepreneurial spirit, like I was a child playing with a lemonade stand. "In fact," Marcus said, his eyes finding mine across the room with what he probably thought was loving indulgence, "I've been so impressed with her little consulting business that I've encouraged her to think about expanding it, maybe even partnering with a larger firm someday." That was my cue. "Actually, darling," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet room, "I have some exciting news to share about that partnership." Marcus's smile flickered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Oh, well, I'm sure everyone would love to hear about your new opportunities." I walked closer to the center of the room, positioning myself so that everyone could see both of us clearly. "I'm delighted to announce that I've accepted a senior partnership with Hartwell Associates, effective January 15th. Jennifer, would you like to tell everyone about our new collaboration?" Jennifer Hartwell stepped forward with the kind of professional confidence that commanded attention. "We're thrilled to welcome Celeste as our newest senior partner. Her expertise in strategic marketing and brand development, combined with her impressive client portfolio, makes her an invaluable addition to our firm." The room buzzed with surprised murmurs. These were people who understood business, who recognized the significance of a senior partnership at a prestigious firm. "The partnership," I continued, looking directly at Marcus, "values my existing business at approximately $2.3 million, which will be my equity stake in the combined operation." Marcus's face went completely white. In front of everyone who mattered to his professional and social standing, his narrative about my little consulting business had just exploded spectacularly. But I wasn't finished. "I also want to thank Marcus for his unique approach to supporting my career," I said, my voice sweet as honey and twice as deadly. "For 15 years, he's been so generous with his financial guidance, managing our household budget and even helping me understand how much my business contributes to our family's success." The room was dead silent now, everyone sensing the undercurrent of tension. In fact, just last week, Marcus was explaining to Jonathan how he enjoys letting me feel independent and productive while he handles the real financial responsibilities. I turned to Jonathan, whose face was now as pale as his business partner's. "Wasn't that right, Jonathan?" Jonathan looked like he wanted to disappear into the marble floor. "But the most touching part," I continued, "has been Marcus's incredible faith in my abilities. He's been so confident in my success that he even had me investigated by a private detective to make sure I wasn't hiding any assets from him." The gasps from our guests were audible now. In our social circle, hiring private investigators to spy on your spouse was the kind of scandal that ended careers and destroyed reputations. Marcus finally found his voice. "Celeste, I think you've had too much champagne." "Oh, I'm completely sober," I interrupted, pulling out my phone. "In fact, I have some wonderful documentation of your confidence in my business abilities. Should I share the emails where you describe my work as a hobby that keeps her busy? Or perhaps the consultation notes from your divorce attorney discussing how to minimize the value of my assets?" The room erupted in shocked whispers. Marcus stood frozen on his chair, holding his champagne glass like a man who just realized he was standing on a burning building. "But don't worry, darling," I said, raising my glass in a mock toast. "I have a New Year's gift for you that I think you'll find unforgettable." The countdown to midnight began on the television behind me. 10, 9, 8. "The gift of truth," I announced as our guests joined the countdown. 7, 6, 5. The truth about who I really am, what I'm actually worth, and exactly how this marriage is going to end. 4, 3, 2. Happy New Year, Marcus. Consider this my notice. 1. Happy New Year. As fireworks exploded over Los Angeles and our guests cheered, Marcus stood on his chair in stunned silence, finally understanding that the woman he'd spent 15 years underestimating had just destroyed him in front of everyone who mattered to his world. And I had never felt more powerful in my life. The aftermath of my New Year's Eve revelation was swift and decisive. Within hours, videos of my speech had been shared across social media by several guests who'd recorded it on their phones. By January 20, the story had reached business blogs and gossip columns throughout Los Angeles. The narrative was irresistible. Successful tech executive's dependent wife revealed to be million-dollar business owner planning to leave him. Marcus had fled our house immediately after the party, claiming he needed space to think at his downtown penthouse. But I knew the real reason. He couldn't face the humiliation of living with the woman who'd just exposed his lies to everyone who mattered in his world. What he didn't know was that his retreat had given me the perfect opportunity to implement the final phase of my plan. On January 3rd, I filed for divorce. Not the quiet, private dissolution Marcus had been planning, but a public filing that immediately triggered media attention due to our high-profile status in the LA business community. Rebecca Sterling had crafted the petition with surgical precision, including detailed documentation of Marcus's financial manipulation, his surveillance of my business activities, and his systematic attempts to diminish my professional achievements. But the most devastating element was what we called the economic abuse addendum, a comprehensive breakdown of how Marcus had used my own success to fund his lifestyle while publicly dismissing my contributions as a hobby. The filing made front-page business news because of one crucial detail. I was seeking not just divorce, but damages for 15 years of economic exploitation. The amount? $10 million, representing lost income, damaged professional reputation, and punitive damages for the systematic deception. Marcus's response was predictably desperate. His attorney called Rebecca within hours, demanding an immediate settlement conference. "Mrs. Webb is clearly having some kind of emotional breakdown," Marcus's lawyer argued during our first mediation session. "These accusations are completely unfounded, and the financial demands are outrageous." Rebecca's response was a masterpiece of legal precision. She presented our evidence methodically, bank records showing how my earnings had been consistently misrepresented, email chains documenting Marcus's dismissive attitude toward my business, surveillance software reports proving he'd been monitoring my communications, and, most damaging of all, his own consultation notes with divorce attorneys discussing strategies to minimize my assets. "Mr. Webb has been planning to divorce my client while systematically devaluing her contributions to their marriage," Rebecca stated calmly. "He's been using her professional success to fund his lifestyle while publicly presenting her as financially dependent on him. This isn't a marriage dispute, it's a case study in financial abuse." But the most satisfying moment came when Rebecca revealed Marcus's private communications with his business partners, obtained through legal discovery processes. "Your client has been using Mrs. Webb's success story as part of his company's marketing materials," Rebecca said, spreading out promotional documents. "He's literally been profiting off her achievements while privately dismissing them as insignificant." Marcus's face crumpled as he realized the scope of what we'd uncovered. His careful manipulation, his strategic planning, his systematic deception, all of it was now documented evidence that could destroy not just his marriage, but his professional reputation. "What do you want?" he finally asked, his voice barely audible. I leaned forward, looking directly at the man who'd spent 15 years making me feel small and insignificant. "I want everything you tried to take from me," I said calmly. "My professional reputation, my financial independence, and my self-respect. But mostly, I want you to understand exactly who you married and what you lost." I slid a settlement proposal across the table. "You can keep the house, the cars, all the toys you bought with my money, but you're going to pay me $5 million for 15 years of economic abuse, and you're going to publicly acknowledge my business achievements in a statement that corrects the narrative you've been spreading." Marcus stared at the document, his hands shaking. $5 million? That's ridiculous. "Actually, it's generous," Rebecca interjected. "Our forensic analysis suggests Mrs. Webb's career would be worth approximately $15 million more today if she hadn't been systematically undermined. We're offering Mr. Laster-Weil Webb the opportunity to settle for a third of the actual damages. And if I refuse?" I smiled, feeling the cold satisfaction of absolute power. "Then we go to trial, where all of this becomes public record. Every email where you dismissed my work, every strategy session where you planned to steal my assets, every conversation where you laughed about your easy wife who did all the work while you took all the credit." I paused, letting the implications sink in. "How do you think your business partners will react when they discover you've been lying about your wife's contributions to your household income? How will your clients feel about working with someone who systematically deceived and exploited the person closest to him?" Marcus looked around the conference room like a trapped animal, finally understanding that all his careful planning had been turned against him. "I need time to think," he said weakly. "You have 48 hours, I replied, standing to leave. "After that, everything becomes public." As I walked out of that conference room, I felt something I hadn't experienced since my corporate days. The absolute certainty that I had won not through luck or circumstance, but through superior strategy and flawless execution. Marcus had spent 15 years underestimating me. Now he was about to pay the price literally and figuratively for that mistake. Marcus signed the settlement agreement 36 hours later. The $5 million payment was just the beginning. More importantly, he agreed to issue a public statement acknowledging my business achievements and correcting the narrative he'd spent years spreading about our marriage. The statement, published in the Los Angeles Business Journal and sent to everyone in our professional and social circles, was a masterpiece of public humiliation disguised as an apology. "I want to publicly acknowledge the extraordinary business achievements of my wife, Celeste Morrison Webb," the statement read. "Her consulting firm has generated over $2 million in revenue over the past 5 years, and her partnership with Hartwell Associates represents the culmination of 15 years of exceptional professional accomplishments. I deeply regret any public statements I may have made that diminished her remarkable success, and I wish her continued prosperity in her future endeavors." The statement was professional, contrite, and absolutely devastating to Marcus's reputation. Everyone who read it understood exactly what it meant. Marcus had been lying about his wife's achievements, probably for years, and had now been forced to publicly admit it as part of a divorce settlement. But the real consequences went far deeper than public embarrassment. Within a week of the settlement announcement, 3 major clients terminated their contracts with Marcus's company, citing concerns about leadership integrity. His business partner, Jonathan Hartwell, requested an immediate audit of their joint ventures, suddenly worried about what other deceptions Marcus might have been hiding. Most satisfying of all, the private investigation Marcus had commissioned came back to haunt him in unexpected ways. The detective he'd hired to investigate me had also documented Marcus's own activities during his business trips activities that included a 2-year affair with his executive assistant and several shorter relationships with clients. When this information became part of the divorce discovery process, it provided additional grounds for the settlement and ensured that Marcus couldn't claim any moral high ground in the dissolution of our marriage. The divorce was finalized on March 15th, exactly 2 months after I'd become a senior partner at Hartwell Associates. By then, my new business partnership had already generated more income than I'd made in the previous 3 years combined. But the most profound consequence wasn't financial, it was personal. For the first time in 15 years, I woke up every morning in my own space, a stunning penthouse overlooking the Pacific that I'd purchased with the settlement money, wearing clothes I'd chosen because I liked them, making decisions based on what I wanted rather than what would make someone else comfortable. The partnership with Hartwell Associates had transformed not just my income, but my entire professional identity. Within 6 months, I was leading campaigns for Fortune 500 companies, giving keynote speeches at marketing conferences, and being featured in business magazines as an example of entrepreneurial success. Marcus, meanwhile, had been forced to downsize his company and sell the Malibu house to cover his debts and the settlement payment. The last I'd heard, he was working as a senior vice president at someone else's firm, still successful, but no longer the master of his own empire. The most poetic justice came when Mrs. Pemberton, our former neighbor who'd condescendingly patted my arm at that Christmas party, called to ask if I'd be interested in consulting on her real estate development company's marketing strategy. "I had no idea you were so accomplished, dear," she said, using the same tone she'd used to dismiss me months earlier. "Marcus really undersold your abilities, didn't he?" "Yes," I replied simply. "He did." 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received an unexpected phone call from Sandra, my forensic accountant friend who'd helped uncover Marcus's deception. "Celeste, I have some interesting news," she said. "Remember how we documented Marcus's pattern of financial manipulation? Well, it turns out you weren't his first victim. She'd been contacted by Marcus's ex-girlfriend from before our marriage, a successful architect who'd experienced similar treatment. And then by his business partner's ex-wife, who'd been systematically excluded from financial decisions despite contributing equally to their joint ventures. There's a pattern here," Sandra explained. "Marcus specifically targets successful women, then systematically undermines their confidence and financial independence. You were just the most successful at fighting back." The revelation led to something I hadn't expected: a support network of women who'd experienced similar financial manipulation in their relationships. We started meeting monthly, sharing strategies for protecting assets, recognizing warning signs, and rebuilding careers after economic abuse. What had started as my personal revenge against one man had evolved into something much larger, helping other women recognize and escape the kind of systematic deception I'd endured for 15 years. The final piece of poetic justice came a year after our divorce, when Forbes magazine featured me in their Women to Watch issue, highlighting my partnership success and my advocacy work for women's financial independence. The article included a quote that perfectly captured my transformation. "Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone who hurt you, it's becoming so successful that their opinion becomes irrelevant." Marcus had spent 15 years trying to make me smaller, quieter, more dependent. Instead, he'd created someone who was louder, stronger, and more successful than he'd ever imagined possible. 2 years after that humiliating Christmas Eve party, I'm sitting in my corner office at Hartwell Associates, looking out over the Pacific Ocean through floor-to-ceiling windows that reflect the morning sun like diamonds. The view alone is worth more than the allowance Marcus used to mock, but the real treasure isn't the luxury, it's the absolute freedom to be exactly who I was always meant to be. My partnership with Hartwell has exceeded every projection. Last month, we closed a $15 million campaign for a tech startup that's now valued at over $100 million. The client specifically requested me because of my reputation for turning struggling companies into market leaders. The woman Marcus dismissed as having a little hobby is now one of the most sought-after strategic consultants on the West Coast. But the most satisfying transformation isn't professional, it's personal. I wake up every morning in my oceanfront penthouse, not because someone else chose it for me, but because I earned it. I drive a Tesla Moon Doe S that I bought with my own money, not because it was a gift with strings attached, but because I wanted it. Every decision in my life, from what I eat for breakfast to which clients I accept, is mine alone. The support group Sandra and I started has grown into a nonprofit organization called Financial Freedom Foundation, helping women recognize and escape economic abuse. We've assisted over 200 women in reclaiming their financial independence, and our workshops are now being offered at business schools across the country. Last month, I gave a TEDx talk titled "The 5-0 Lie," How Financial Manipulation Hides in Plain Sight. The video has been viewed over 2 million times, and I've received hundreds of messages from women sharing their own stories of systematic financial control disguised as care. The most unexpected consequence of my divorce has been the relationships it's opened up. When you stop accepting being diminished, you attract people who celebrate your strength rather than fear it. My social circle now includes entrepreneurs, executives, artists, and activist people who see my success as inspiring rather than threatening. And Marcus? The last I heard, he'd moved to Phoenix and was working for someone else's company. His dreams of empire reduced to middle management and a modest salary. His reputation in Los Angeles never recovered from the public revelation of how he'd treated me. The business community has a long memory for men who systematically deceive and exploit their partners. But honestly, I rarely think about him anymore. Revenge, it turns out, has an expiration date. The initial satisfaction of his downfall faded into something much more valuable: complete indifference to his opinion of me. The real victory isn't that Marcus lost, it's that I won. I won back my professional identity, my financial independence, and most importantly, my absolute certainty in my own worth. The woman who stood in that Malibu mansion feeling small and dismissed no longer exists. In her place is someone who commands boardrooms, builds empires, and refuses to accept anything less than complete respect. 6 months ago, I received an invitation that perfectly captured how completely my life had changed. Harvard Business School asked me to give their keynote address on entrepreneurial success. The same university where Marcus had gotten his MBA, the degree he'd used to justify controlling our finances, wanted me to inspire the next generation of business leaders. Standing at that podium, looking out at hundreds of brilliant young minds, I told them something Marcus never understood. Success isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about recognizing your worth and refusing to let anyone convince you to accept less than you deserve. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Now, as I finish writing this story, I have a question for everyone who's followed my journey from victim to victor. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship where someone systematically diminished your achievements while benefiting from your success? Have you ever been made to feel grateful for receiving what was rightfully yours? The most important lesson I learned isn't about revenge, it's about recognition. Recognizing your own value, recognizing manipulation when it's happening, and recognizing that you have the power to change your story at any point. Marcus thought he was giving me an allowance. What he was actually doing was funding my independence. He thought he was keeping me small. What he was actually doing was teaching me exactly how strong I could become. He thought he was in control. What he actually did was hand me the keys to a life beyond his wildest imagination. The best gift you can give yourself isn't revenge against people who underestimate you, it's becoming so successful that their opinion becomes completely irrelevant. And trust me, that feeling is absolutely priceless. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever experienced financial manipulation in a relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories inspire me to keep fighting for women's financial freedom. And if this story resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes the most powerful gift we can give someone is the reminder that they're stronger than they know.